Hi, my name is Terry Westwell and welcome back to Panic at the Book Club. This week we're discussing People on Platform 5 by Clare Pooley. It's the same as usual. If you haven't read that yet, I would suggest going doing that first because there'll definitely be spoilers. And if you are new to this channel, I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed. Every bit of interaction would be appreciated. So in the UK, especially in London, there's an unwritten rule that you do not talk to strangers and you do not talk to people on public transport. So if you are thinking of coming over for a visit, if you're outside of the UK, then don't talk to anyone on public transport because you will get some funny looks. So the people on platform 5 all understand this unwritten rule of London, and they don't talk to each other, they mind their own business on public transport until one day there's a near-death experience which sets off a chain event leading to some very unlikely friendships. Just a quick side note, throughout most of this book I was waiting for someone to be unalived for no reason really other than I think it being a reflection on the books that we have been reading the last few weeks, because it certainly wasn't that kind of book. I cannot stress how much I enjoy a short chapter. Each chapter was a good size, it was really manageable and easy to read, and it meant I could read a chapter or two before bed without having to put it down halfway through a chapter and picking it up at a really annoying moment the next day. Each chapter was centered around a different character, and because the characters were all completely different people with completely different lives, actually made it quite easy to read. And because each character was very limited on what it revealed in their own personal lives outside of this train journey, it was actually not very complicated because you didn't have to learn a ton of information about the people in each individual's lives and other things that weren't relevant to the story. So it was really easy to follow despite there being so many different perspectives. You know, the book was mostly about the relationship between these people on this train journey rather than their own individual lives. So the outside world wasn't really a huge concern to the narrative of the book. It was a real interesting way to get to know the characters. You're first introduced to Iona, and at first I remember being really concerned that I wasn't going to like her. I just thought it was going to be some grumpy old woman who was going to look down on everyone else, and I really was worried that it was going to be an opportunity for the author to just pile on a bunch of awful stereotypes. However, I'm happy to report that I was delightfully surprised. She was fun and creative, and yeah, although she was a little bossy at times, she had such a fun history to share and learn about. I was so sad when she lost her job and when you found out about Maid. Like, it was something that was so realistic and something that was quite common for a lot of people to be going through, and so you could really put yourself in her shoes and imagine almost what she might feel like. You know, you can't help but put yourself in her shoes and find a new level of appreciation for this woman who is constantly looking after and helping others. I love how by the end she finally has this circle of friends, you know, this support that she's not had in a long time, but also she manages to prove herself. Like, this wonderfully eccentric, creative woman isn't the one that was old fashioned just because she was older. It was this awful, disrespectful magazine company. Like, in the end, when she finally tells Ed to f off, like, good on her. Like, I think I would have done the same. Just a little side note. Iona by far has one of the best lines in the book. When she's talking to Sanjay and she's trying to explain to him that he doesn't even really know Emmy. Like, for all he knows, she is mean to puppies and follows Katie Hopkins on Twitter, and that truly gave me a giggle. It's very funny. Emmy is a perfectly normal, standard woman, and when confronted in this life or death situation, she felt like she wasn't very useful. She didn't really do much to help in the situation. I think that really made her rethink a lot about her life. Like, she wasn't really doing enough for the world. Really changed her view and made her realise that she wants to do more. She wants to do something that, you know, is good and is going to help people. And I think that's quite a normal response when you're put in a situation like that. I think that would be a perfectly normal reaction. It's funny, isn't it? Seeing someone else in that situation made her think about her own mortality. I understood her issues as well when Sanjay was implying that her fiancé might not be as good of a guy as she thinks. I understand that need to protect, and I just felt really bad for her when she was uncovering the truth. I think a lot of women do misunderstand and misinterpret that sort of behaviour as well as love. You know, if someone's being that jealous and manipulating your life that much, that's not love. And I just felt so bad for her. I mean, I was rooting for them to break up, but that's not the point. Like, it was still really. Why did I choose such hard eye makeup? Sanjay, the hero, the nurse of the story, he thinks he feels too much. And I agree with Iona. I think that's kind of what makes him such a good nurse. In my experience, the ones who don't care, the medical professionals who are completely dead to it, are the ones that kind of don't listen to you, the ones who don't listen to your pain, and to be honest, aren't as good at their job. Like, there's definitely a limit to it, and Sanjay probably does feel a little bit too much, but I just think it probably makes him better at the job. That being said, you do need to protect yourself, and there is definitely a limit. You don't want it to affect your life too much. At the beginning, Sanjay went out of his way to buy and read some of the book that Emmy was reading. Now, I couldn't decide if that was really sweet or if it was actually quite creepy and stalkerish. The more I started rooting for these two characters to get together, it definitely went more towards the sweet side. But that just goes to show, doesn't it, just how how close the line is sometimes between sweet and creepy. Plus, I really enjoyed the callback in the end when he finally got to ask Emmy about what she thought about Mrs. Danvers. I think that was a really, really sweet ending to their story. I really felt for Martha. I think she was a fantastic representation of some of the issues that women and young girls can face. Being objectified and then being bullied and name called and shamed because of an intimate photo, and it's almost that representation of just how girls can't win. The way that she found a family in this unlikely group of people and how it completely changed her and her confidence and even her prospects for the future and what she might do with her life. Doing what she truly wants to do and having the support to do that when her own family just sort of didn't want to know and didn't really have the time for her. I think it's sad, but there's a really sweet narrative for her. For good reason, I truly thought I was going to hate Piers. I think we've all been victim to a manspreader who is just selfish and inconsiderate on public transport. The guy who probably will tell you to smile more and talk way too much, way too loud on the phone. I mean, he was still definitely a little bit that person by the end of the book. Like, any grown person who is squeamish about talking about a period really needs to grow up. But he did become a much more likeable character. He was a really good representation of money isn't everything, and if you're miserable in your career and it's not for you and you're miserable in your life because of it, then make those changes. All you can do is try, and he went off and did what it is he wanted, and it's not always that straightforward and simple, but you never know until you try. I did feel bad for him with his wife, but to be honest, that was probably for the best. Jake and David, they weren't exactly big characters, but they were really important to the narrative. I just didn't really feel like I connected with them anywhere near as much as I did the rest of the characters, which does totally make sense. Plus, if it wasn't for Jake, Martha probably wouldn't have thrown that well-deserved punch at the end. Like, have you ever heard anyone say that they thought that their lives would make an amazing sitcom or something like that, when in reality, if that was the case, it would be extremely boring and nobody would want to watch it? Well, that's kind of like what the book was like. It was ordinary people living ordinary lives with very common problems. Yeah, it was actually a really enjoyable read. Unlike some of the books we've been reading, it's not a book where it's the storyline that's necessarily drawing you in. It's more the connection that it's building with the characters. Despite everything this book is saying, I do want to just stress one very important point, and that is don't talk to strangers on a train in London. Like, it won't go this way, and you'll certainly just receive some really weird looks. Would I recommend this book? I think definitely. It's not a thriller and it's not a particularly exciting read. But what it is a really good, feel-good book that you could happily just read a chapter or two before bed. Overall, I really enjoyed it. On that note, please let me know what you think. Did you enjoy the book? Shelley on TikTok said that it was an easy read that keeps you interested. She liked how you could relate to each of the characters, and isn't it interesting how we always try and fit people into different stereotypes? I couldn't agree more. I loved the nicknames that each of the characters came up with each other, because who hasn't been there? Who hasn't done that? I mean, I for one love people watching. So next week we'll be discussing The Maid by Nita Prose. Don't forget to comment and share your thoughts by Monday the 26th latest, just like Shelley, to become a part of the discussion. Now you can do this on YouTube, TikTok, or even Instagram. The following week we'll be discussing No One Saw a Thing by Andrea, which will be on the 4th of July. Don't forget, if you do need a little bit longer to read a book, I do now list the next 4 below, so you can choose which ones are best for you. And on that note, thank you very much for coming, and we'll see you all next week. Bye!